Want to welcome you guys back to another episode of Pistons Talk Podcast presented by FanDuel. Have a jam-packed episode for you guys today. 5 total segments. Let's get into segment 1. DeMar DeRozan. So there was a report this morning from Mark Stein saying that the Pistons are evaluating a pursuit of DeMar DeRozan in free agency. Per the Stein line, Detroit sits at $46 million under the tax line and wants more offense around Cade Cunningham. DeRozan's market should take off once LeBron decides. Now, we have actually talked about DeMar DeRozan on this podcast. I want to say it was maybe a week or so ago because there was news that the Kings were going to waive him, stretch out his contract, and he would become an unrestricted free agent. He is still unsigned. Obviously, there was a report that he's waiting on what LeBron does, which I think some people may roll their eyes at, but LeBron could go anywhere in the Eastern Conference. He keeps teasing that he's going to make a decision. He was supposed to do it today at the Fanatics Fest. He still didn't do it 2 days in a row. So that's just typical LeBron. Typical LeBron. But circling back to DeMar, I think with the teams that we've heard, Miami, Toronto, now possibly Detroit, they're all playoff teams. So DeMar is looking to play for a playoff team. Now, Detroit is doing their due diligence to see if DeMar would have interest in coming to Detroit. And I want to talk about the connection that he does have with somebody in the front office. Then I want to discuss the type of player he is right now and what could the ideal role and fit be with him in Detroit. So let's talk about the connection first. The connection that he does have to someone in the front office is Dwayne Casey, which is his former coach. He played with him in Toronto. Now, Dwayne Casey does have a role with the Pistons. He did get elevated from a head coach to initially a scout, but now he is a senior advisor who reports to Trajan Langdon. So Dwayne Casey does have a relationship with DeMar. He could possibly set up a call, a meeting, or they go out to him to see what he's feeling, what he wants to do at this stage of his career. So there's the Wayne Casey element to the DeMar DeRozan, internal report from Mark Stein. So that is a nugget that I would definitely pay attention to. It's something. The second thing I wanted to get into with him is his fit in Detroit. Now, he's not a three-point shooter. We can all agree there. Sub-30s three-point shooter. You're not really bringing in DeMar for perimeter three-point spacing. That's not why you would bring him in. What you would bring him in and what he is at this stage of his career is he's still a very good half-court set offensive player, even at this stage of his career. He's really good at getting to the mid-range. He's a very great facilitator, which he's developed a lot since his San Antonio days. I think that's where I really saw his playmaking actually uptick. He's still really good at making reads and, out of the pick and roll and getting to the free throw line, stuff like that. That's probably why you would bring a DeMar in. He would have a similar role to a Karis LeVert, but you're just not getting the same type of defensive effort that you would get out of Karis. DeMar defensively is just bad. It's the nicest way I can kind of put it, with just calling a spade a spade. He's not a good defender. But he would have a similar role to a Karras with the Pistons, is being a bench leader and, having the ball in his hands, getting to the free throw line, setting up his teammates, getting into the mid range and distributing the basketball. Now, obviously, he's played for quite a long time. He is older. I understand Pistons fans probably not wanting to go after someone that has played for as long as he has. But I think the half court sets have me intrigued as a fan, just because this team, and you guys could agree with this team would have scoreless runs where they just could not generate anything out of a half court set, where a team was playing zone on them. The biggest way you can, go after zone is shooting, which I think, 3-point shooting can help. But the half court sets, this team was just really bad at. And you even saw it in the playoffs a lot, where outside of Cade, if Cade is not generating something for you, this team does struggle to, score out of half court sets. And I think DeMar at this stage of his career still is really good in mid range. He's really good at getting to the free throw line and actually operating out of a half court set. So I think he does check a lot of boxes if the Pistons want to have someone off of their bench that can have a scoring load and just be productive out of that type of role off the bench. Now, I think my biggest question, and you guys probably have maybe a similar question, maybe not. I don't want to assume. Where does he play? And I'm not saying like off the bench, like position wise. Like what position does he play? Because we look at the shooting guard room, that's full. You have Duncan Robinson or Isaiah Joe probably starting or coming off the bench, vice versa. You brought back Kevin Herter. Chaz Lanier is having an incredible summer league game, or summer league, I should say. He's had a lot of pretty decent summer league games, I will say. Like, is DeMar a backup too? I don't know. Is he a backup small forward? You have Ron Holland, you have Javonte Green, Torian Prince, Kevin Herter could slide into there too. Really depends on lineups. Like, are you bringing DeMar to back up the SAR? I don't know. I've seen some fans on the timeline bring up pack up power forward. Now DeMar is 6'6". He did play a little bit of backup power forward in San Antonio, but it wasn't an everyday thing. It was matchup dependent. That's my biggest question because you're very guard heavy, which I didn't even mention Gary Harris. I mean, Gary Harris is another guard. I don't even know if he's going to be on the team because you're at 16 out of 15 roster spots. You could make room for DeMar, but I think my biggest question to you guys would be, where do you put him in at? Like, what position is he playing off the bench? Because you're not bringing him in to start next to Cade Cunningham, even though the Pistons do need more offense. Not saying that DeMar wouldn't be out on the court with Cade in certain situations. Last 2 minutes of a game, he definitely could, but you're not going to bring him out there, to play, 32 minutes a night. At this stage of his career, he's probably like around 15 to 20, but he could still be very productive for you. But I think my biggest question is like position. Like, is it shooting guard? Is it small forward? Is it backup power forward? That to me is probably the $1,000,000 question that I just don't have the answer to. I'm not going to act like I do, but did want to discuss the DeMar report from Mark Stein to start up the podcast because it could be a possibility for the Pistons to bring in more of a scoring threat. Now, I understand if fans don't like the defense, they don't like the fit, they don't like the perimeter shooting. I get it. I totally get it, but he is a name that the Pistons are at least keeping an eye on to see if there's a possibility for him to come to Detroit. Now, when we get into segment two, the extension's being close. Now, we talked about this yesterday with Jalen Duren, this R. Thompson, and Jake Fisher actually had a report as well. We heard it from a national reporter with Chris Haynes yesterday. We heard it with Hunter Patterson, who had some intel as well with Duren and extensions. Jake Fisher has another report, and this is what he's hearing with Jalen Duren and the Pistons with an extension.
There's been momentum and positive direction between Duren and the Pistons, and ever since that Caris LeVert trade for Torian Prince and Gary Harris, that opened up the cap space for Detroit to give Jalen Duren his 25% max contract that he is looking for. I do think they're getting close. That's my latest understanding of that situation. I don't know exactly how close or when to expect it, but definitely closer than when they were before that trade. And I think that trade was indicative of some positive movement between Detroit and Jalen Duren.
So, with the Caris LeVert trade that brought in Gary Harris and Torian Prince, more positive direction with the Pistons and Jalen Duren, which you like to hear. I know we've tried to track the extension talks, the reports that come out from the national side, from the local side, and obviously both sides want to get a deal done. It's just a stalemate because of the figure. Like, what is the figure going to be? Jake mentioned the 25% max. I don't know if it's going to be a 25% max. I think the Pistons are standing pretty firm on like what they want to give him. So maybe Duren and his representation can meet them in the middle and both sides can shake hands, sign the contract, and come to an agreement. And the Pistons can focus on Asar because that was another report yesterday that after Duren's contract is all settled, they want to get a deal done with Asar like this summer, like now, because he is extension eligible. And I think that's the right decision because you don't want to roll the dice and gamble again. Because let's just say Asar has a breakout season, you're going to be in a very similar situation as you are right now with Jalen Duren with Asar Thompson. So you know what you have in Asar defensively. Offensively, I think is a big question mark still because you don't know what he can possibly turn into or not turn into offensively. But you do want to get a deal done and lock in your core three of Jalen Duren, Cade Cunningham, and Asar Thompson. Those are the three players that they want to build around and have their core intact. So obviously that is good news that, it is trending towards a positive direction with the Pistons and Jalen Duren. I have seen some, I'm not going to name who it was, but they're, pretty big in the Detroit space, especially with the shows that they do. And they're saying it's just like, yeah, like Duren's fed up with the Pistons. He wants out. It's just like, I think it's irresponsible to say stuff if you don't know for sure that's true. Um, it just is. You never know who's going to be watching your shows or listening to your shows. You got to be careful what you say. You really do, man, because we're getting reporting that like obviously the two sides still want to get a deal done. It's just a dispute between the money, and obviously I think they'll come to an agreement, meet in the middle, and get all this over with. But I wanted to get into segment 3. It is contracts, but it's not what you guys think. So Yahoo Sports actually made a list of the worst contracts in free agency, and a Piston actually made it, and a former Piston actually made it. So worst contracts they have is Trae Young with the Wizards, Walker Kessler with the Lakers, Gary Trent Jr. with the Bucks, DeAndre Jordan with the Pelicans, John Collins with the Pistons, and Tobias Harris with the Spurs. I wanted to talk about this for a couple of minutes, right? I can probably get with you with the DeAndre Jordan stuff, which is objectively hilarious. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but just look up DeAndre Jordan contract details if you guys haven't. Troy Weaver and Joe Dumars just made a huge blunder in their front office with his new deal. I could get with you with Gary Harris as well, because the guy was on vet minimums and now he's making $64 million over 4 years. And even the NBA is investigating in it and saying, okay, what's going on? I could maybe understand a Trae Young from a contract perspective of that's going to be hard to move if it doesn't work out. John Collins and Tobias Harris, I don't understand. Yeah, if you look at it, 3 years, $51 million for John Collins. Yeah, it's definitely a bigger contract, but if you look at the details, it's only guaranteed for 1 year at $16 million. That is not a bad contract. It's less than what the Pistons were paying Tobias Harris last year. They're paying him $26 million. So not only have they got a cheaper deal for a starting power forward, they got younger. They got more athletic. Now, they're different players. John Collins and Tobias Harris are different archetype of power forwards. They play differently. I don't agree that John Collins is a bad contract, because if it doesn't work after this season, or you're just not really feeling the John Collins experience, because defensively there is a pretty significant drop off between Collins and Tobias, you have the right to do that because it's non-guaranteed. But I think it's wild to even include John Collins in this list. Tobias being included in a worst contract, it's a 2-year deal with the Spurs. Like, they're not going to be heavily reliant on Tobias like the Pistons were. The Spurs have a pretty good core intact that can score the basketball still. We saw it all season. They made the NBA Finals. They lost to the Knicks. Like, they're still a really good team. I think Tobias is probably going to have a reserve role. I don't think that's a bad contract at all, but I kind of found it funny that Yahoo thinks it's a bad contract, and people even made it a step further because they wanted to see who wrote the contract. And the guy that wrote the contract is actually a Celtics fan. Out of all the fan bases to write a worst contract article right now, you got Paul George, man. You got Paul George on your books. Like, good luck with that. Good luck with that. But I wanted just to discuss that because I was like, how is John Collins a bad contract? Like, I just don't see it. But next segment we're going to get into is NBA streaming. And you may be asking, like, why are we talking about that? So, as you guys know, the Pistons are going to be on TV for free over the air with Scripps, My TV 20, Detroit. Don't know if the Pistons are going to include an antenna for Pistons fans like Matt Ishbia did with the Phoenix Suns. It'd be cool if Tom Gordon and the Pistons did that. But why I wanted to talk about it today is there was actually some news with Adam Silver and he talks to the media at Vegas every year. And Adam Silver on NBA streaming, local broadcast streaming hub expected by 27-28, which is next summer. YouTube is a leading candidate per Sports Business Journal. And this is a quote from Adam Silver. We're making progress in local television, and I'm even more optimistic that we're going to see a solution for the league. The community value of local sports remains critically important. Adam Silver. So the Pistons, the NBA is looking to have a streaming hub, a local broadcast streaming hub for 2027-28, which is next year. And in this article from Sports Business Journal, they had basically cited that there are over 13 teams that are going to do something similar to what the Pistons did. And they are basically telling them, yes, you could do over the air, but have it where you can opt out of your contract after the end of the year, because we could actually have something where we have a brand new streaming hub, and YouTube could be a big player to carry this hub. Now, I've read articles about the last streaming bid with YouTube, and they were really only going to be a player in it if over 12 plus teams agreed to do a deal with them, lowering the RSN feeds, which are probably the biggest obstacle with a lot of these streaming platforms that they deal with, because these RSN feeds get incredibly expensive. I know you guys, like, we have watched our team on Fox Sports, then it went to Bally, then it went to FanDuel. Now it's going to be over the air with Channel 7, MyTV20, and Scripps. It's been just a headache, and I think the biggest headache and the biggest obstacle that a lot of these leagues face are our RSNs. And we even had the previous company that broadcasted it go bankrupt. So, I mean, it's just like a whole situation. It's going to be cool that it is free. I already plan on just buying an antenna myself. They're very cheap. You can get one on Amazon for under $30. Excuse me. And you can just plug it into your TV and you're good to go. So that's probably what I'm going to do. I don't know if the Pistons are going to include an antenna for fans to watch. I don't even know what they're going to do for the west side of the state, because I know some of you guys that do live on the western side of the state have told me, like, hey, like, I don't get my TV 20 Detroit over here. Like, how am I going to watch? I don't know, you guys. I have no idea. I think the Pistons definitely will probably make an update how to watch, how you guys can watch. But it sounds like it's just going to be for this upcoming season in 26-27. It could be a brand new streaming service that we have to pay for in 27-28. But I did want to kind of update you guys on that. I know it's kind of like a boring topic, but just a little update with the NBA streaming rights of what the NBA wants to do. Like, if it's just like a repackaged League Pass, man, like I'll be so pissed off. Like, because League Pass is so bad. Like, you have to wait 3 days. If you want to rewatch a game, it's like a 72-hour blackout, and you have to wait. It's just like, what are we doing? And like, when I would have a game blacked out, they're just giving me the FanDuel broadcast anyways. They're not giving me like a League Pass broadcast or an NBA broadcast. Like, I would have to wait 3 days just to watch a FanDuel broadcast, because that's who the Pistons TV partner was, and I had already paid for FanDuel Sports Network for the year. I was just a free trial with League Pass. I wanted to see how it was, and it's just like, oh, you're gonna make me wait 3 days when I can just like go watch it back on the app. Okay. Yeah, I have no idea what this streaming hub that they expect to have out. If it's this League Pass, man, like, the blackouts are probably the biggest obstacle, I would say, with just the streaming stuff. But it's honestly kind of crazy that we're in 2026 and we still don't actually have a solution of how to watch our sports teams without it being an obstacle and a money grab. Last segment of this podcast is Pistons under over. So actually, all the under overs are out right now on FanDuel Sportsbook, and that's our next segment. So I want to put this graphic on the screen and go over it with you guys. So this is the Eastern Conference under over win totals. So Let's start with number 1. The Knicks are set at 52.5. Surprisingly, the Pistons and the Celtics are below them at 50.5 for their win totals. Then you have Cleveland at 47.5, along with Philly at 47.5, Toronto at 45.5, Miami at 45.5, Indiana at 44.5, Orlando at 43.5, Atlanta at 42.5, Charlotte at 37.5, Washington at 35.5, Milwaukee Bucks 26.5, Chicago 25.5, and the Brooklyn Nets at 21.5. So Pistons are right there below the Knicks, and they're tied with the Celtics at 50.5 for their under over. Now, if we remember, last year the under over was set at 44.5, which I think a lot of us were like probably taking the over. So Vegas thinks that the Pistons are still going to be a good basketball team. They'll be a 50-win team. I tend to agree with that. I still think the Pistons are a 50-win basketball team. I think the way that they're built right now, this is going to be a very good regular season team. Now, playoff roster, that's where I have my concerns and questions. I think if you want to advance deeper in the playoffs, you're going to have to find a secondary scorer. Relying on internal development for another year, I think you would have to see just vast improvements from Jalen Duren and Asar Thompson for you to feel comfortable that you actually have a secondary scoring option. But 50.5 for the Pistons, I'm probably going to take the over on that. I think they will win over 50 games this year. Obviously, the schedule isn't out, but I kind of like the roster that they do have. They did supply more three-point shooting. This is the most three-point shooting Cade Cunningham will ever have on a roster. So, his life is going to be a little bit easier with a spread out floor. You did get a little bit more playmaking. You're bringing back Danius Jenkins. Buka Okoro, has been a little bit of a rough watch over the past 3 games, but I think if he does play with real NBA players from real NBA spacing, he'll be completely fine. I mean, the connection that he has with Chaz Lanier, imagine the connection he could have with Duncan Robinson or Isaiah Joe, or a real big that could actually set him a screen, because he has not gotten the best screen set for him in the summer league so far. But I do want to kind of end the podcast with the summer league stuff. So the summer league, we have our final game tonight, which is at 9 p.m. I'm probably not going to do a post-game podcast for it because it's just a consolation game. I don't anticipate seeing a Buka Okoro or Chaz Lanier out there for long, maybe a quarter or two, if that. I think this consolation game is just for the other players on the summer league roster to give them more of a little bit of an opportunity to play a little bit more. Again, like, you're just really watching to see the exhibit 10s. Maybe a guy like a Roddy Gale can, impress the Pistons staff to possibly give him a training camp invite, which we're a couple of months out from that because it's only July. But let me know what you guys think of today's episode with DeMar DeRozan and the Pistons, possibly being interested in him. Also, the Jalen Duren, a little update with it, trending towards, getting done sooner than later. Also have the worst contracts in the NBA. I still don't agree with John Collins being a bad contract. The streaming rights for the 2027-2028 season. Looks like we might have to pay for another TV service subscription, whatever it may be. Hopefully it's just not a league pass repackaged, because that would totally be the NBA if they did that, honestly. And the under over with the Pistons being at 50.5. Talk to you guys down below in the comment section. Like always, hope you guys are staying safe. Take care, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Peace.